We now welcome Enrica Piccardo, Ekaterina Prigaro, José Luis Ortiz Soria, and Miguel Sanchez Luna, presenting Using Multiple Lenses to Investigate the Complexity of Innovation in Language Education.
So our presentation is going to be organized around these 4 points. We will talk about this project called Advancing Agency in Language Education. Here you see the logo. We'll say more, a little bit of a project view and rationale. Then we will take you to the data collection tools that we have been using, and to go then to this idea while leveraging multiple lenses to study something so complex as agency, and then eventually teaching innovation is so important. And then we will move to say that we are designing a toolkit, but the next presentation will go into more depth with that. So, overview and rationale. This is a project that was funded by SSHRC with an Insight grant, and but brings together very different faculties and many research assistants from 3 big provinces in Canada, with my colleague Jeff Lawrence, Aline Germain Rutherford, and Angelica Galante, and several collaborators and research assistants, plus 10 teachers collaborators. Why did we want to do this project? Well, because things build up, you know, even in our research, as we have seen with the plenary speakers this morning. The roots of this project go back to a project called the Dire Linguistic and Cultural Diversity Reinvented, where we observed that while some teachers developed a sense of agency when it was to the point of pedagogical innovation, action orientation, plurilingualism, using scenarios, others resisted the pedagogical changing, relying on traditional mechanical activities and rote memorization, etc. So we were not discouraged, but we did another project where we basically reused the material that we had used with 2 big cohorts, 85 teachers in the first iteration and 169 in the second, in various Italian provinces. And there it worked much better, in the sense that the few teachers that I had used that in Canada were enthusiastic, but many were afraid of using this innovation. In the second one, we said, why did it work so well? Well, there was extensive professional development. There was a sort of cascade model that teachers never felt alone, but they felt supported by peers in their desire to innovate. And then this way, they built the confidence to exert their agency, which they have done. They have continued to use this kind of material and created their own. So this was, for us, very important to go with the new project that was really focusing on this aspect, on agency, but that kept the roots, the 3 roots that we had in the other project: plurilingualism, action orientation, and the use of technology as an enabler. And we wanted to see this time the interplay between teachers' beliefs, context, and practices. And we wanted, again, as we had done in the previous project, to work with teachers to design teacher-centered professional development strategies and resources that would facilitate and sustain that pedagogical innovation. So our project has different phases, and it's quite a big, complex project, so only you will see some parts today. Investigating belief, identifying the resources, working with teachers to create this repository, and then the next phase will be to evaluate the effectiveness of this repository on sustaining innovation. And we do it with 4 languages: English, French, German, and Spanish, in varied contexts. our theory, the theory informing our project is complexity theory, complex dynamic system theory, you can call it as you want, as seen as a meta theory, because this gives us really the frame to be able to conduct this kind of research. And within this frame, other theories bring a lot, like that is important for us. In the sociocultural theory, mainly for the idea of mediation and co-constructing of meaning, of languaging, the social cognitive theory, mainly with the idea of self-efficacy and agency, and the ecologic semiotic perspective for the big important concept of affordances. So basically, non-linearity is what brings this theory together. Non-linearity of the learning process, and also I would say of the teaching process, because if the learning process is non-linear, we need to have teachers who are able to do that. And agency is core to all these theories. So the complexity theory, agency is considered core in the evolution of each complex adaptive system, because it evolves also dynamically and it's emergent. In the sociocultural theory, it is contextually enacted and crucial in this mediation through languaging process. In the affordances, in the ecological perspective, affordances are acted on by individuals when they are exercise their agency by accepting these invitations that they perceive in this environment, which means that we have to have students to perceive these affordances, otherwise the affordances are useless. And finally, agency in the social cognitive theory, is dependent upon self-efficacy. We've heard today quite a lot on self-efficacy, and in reality, the individual's beliefs in their ability is core and guides their choice of actions. So this quote by Van Leer is a kind of manifesto for our own research, where it says that you have to learning to perceive affordances within multimodal communicative events, and every subject and every topic is an affordance network that is accessed through collaborative activity.
In terms of the methodologies, systems that we use, we integrated multiple data sets collected through Q-source surveys, focus groups, and cross-Canadian landscape survey, and teacher reflections for which teachers also shared their teaching materials. In phase one, we focus on investigating teacher beliefs and practices by using Q methodology surveys, and focus groups. In phase two, we identify professional development resources and strategies with the landscape survey, the teacher reflections and artifacts, and additional information collected in a researcher-led event with French language educators in Ontario. Q methodology helps us define and describe the nature and complexity of participants' beliefs and practices in a systematic way. In Q methodology, participants categorize a series of statements in a process that is known as Q-sort. Unlike with Likert scales, in a Q-sort, each item statement is sorted in relation to the other. And we created one Q-sort survey for each pillar. The surveys were administered online and developed with Q-sort tags. On the right side of the slide, you can see the Q grid we use for the surveys. In each survey, participants rank 30 statements in a forced quasi-normal distribution from most challenging to most feasible. 47 teachers completed the survey, and 39 of them participated in focus groups to discuss the survey responses. We used Kate to complete a factor analysis of the data collected from the Q surveys. And to use of, for each pillar, we prepare one input file with all participants' survey responses. The factor analysis with Kate grouped shared perspectives into factors. In the slide, we also have the composite grid for one of the factors obtained for the technology pillar. This composite grid shows the combined answer by the participants who are significant for a factor. To interpret the factors, We especially look at the statements categorized as most challenging, most feasible, and those statements in the composite grid that made each factor more unique in comparison to the others. This allows us to label the factors and provide a story description for each of them. And here you can see the factors and their labels. Across the three pillars, we can observe how the factors showcase participant reflections on the potential and challenges of providing authentic plurilingual learning experiences supported by technology, and the challenge of designing more learner-centered learning experiences. And here you can see the emerging findings for the three pillars, taking into consideration surveys and focus groups. For action orientation, we can highlight themes regarding the shift in teacher-student dynamics and the challenge of creating authentic learning tasks. Regarding plurilingualism, the main themes are teacher and students shifting roles and enacting meaningful plurilingual practices that embrace teachers and students' identities. And lastly, for technology, findings highlight the need for capacity building around teachers' technopedagogical competence. The shifting teacher-learner dynamics with digital practices is a significant theme across the three pillars.
During phase 2, we also collected quantitative data through a landscape survey, as you can see, which targeted teachers that teach English, French, German, as well as Spanish in the Canadian context. 156 participants, teachers answered questions about the demographics, as well as their teaching experiences and familiarity with the three pillars. To give you a tiny snippet of the data, we saw, for example, that only 47% of participants said that they were moderately or very familiar with plurilingualism. And moreover, we also saw that only 33% of them said that they often or always use plurilingual approaches in their practice. In phase 2 also, we had 16 teachers come back from phase 1, and they participated in video recorded self-reflections, where they were asked to talk about their teaching positions, as well as they were asked to bring in their self-selected sequences of lessons, as well as the materials that they used for those lessons. In terms of data analysis, the self-reflections were analyzed, and we looked at basically reoccurring opportunities and challenges that teachers talked about with respect to the three pillars. Just to zoom in very briefly into the plurilingual practices here, we can see some reoccurring opportunities. For example, learners were actively drawing on their linguistic repertoires. We saw some challenges as well. And after that, we had factor analysis and focus groups to really zero in on the bigger themes. Very briefly, we'll talk about leveraging multiple lenses. As you probably realize, we have a lot of data collected through the different stages. And so we're trying to essentially take all of this data and make sure that all of these insights are informing the subsequent phases of the project. So for instance, we can see in point 2 here, both phase 1 and phase 2, so the Q surveys as well as the landscape surveys kind of give us the broader picture, the macro level, and the reflections, for instance, in the focus groups give us the more micro level, the more narrow teacher narratives and their experiences. So in light of all of that, Miguel will talk about the design of the toolkit.
Thank you, Kate. Now we continue with the principles of the designing of the toolkit. As we have seen so far, the rich data informs the way we develop the toolkit. And I'm going to show you some of the principles. The first one has to do with sustainable design, which is we understand professional development as nonlinear and expanding process in which teachers adopt concepts and sometimes, well, the methodologies. They try those methodologies in the classroom. They see if it works or not, or they work or not, and they make some changes. So they refine this process. So it's expanding and nonlinear. We also see the need to develop teachers' agency through the toolkit. So we invite them to explore the material at their pace and with the time they have to do so, because we understand teachers are really busy most of the time. And so they also express the need to share their created material. Some of the teachers have some material videos that they have created, and also the existing resources. We also notice that there are varying expertise levels. So sometimes, for example, a concept, some teachers, according to the data, some teachers are familiar with the concept, let's say, plurilingual pedagogies, but some others are not. So that's why we explored this, and we created bite-sized definitions of these concepts, as well as deeper dives and extended explorations of these concepts. Then we noticed that there is a gap between what the familiarity they have with the concepts, and sometimes what happens inside the classroom. So the practices. So the idea is also to bring those, to link the theory and the practice. So, we also need to strengthen specific areas in the appropriate tasks for example, appropriate tasks for action-oriented approaches. And this is going to be further exploring the next presentation. So I'm going to just move quickly into the designing of the toolkit. We are now on phase 3, which is working with teachers to refining this content. The toolkit has, well, the info sheets, some practical examples, scenarios, guidance, and planning resources, as well as a curated set of external resources. And to conclude the presentation, I'm going to share with you some implications, key implications that emerge in the process. The first one is the importance of leveraging multiple phases and multiple context teacher-focused research. That means the multiple lenses that we use to analyze data, and that leads to teacher-driven pedagogical innovation in language education. Then we also see the value of teacher or educator researcher collaboration. So this is a project done, this is not a project done for teachers, but with teachers. We also see the essential contribution of digital approaches, especially technology as an enabler and as a mediating factor between the plurilingual and action-oriented pedagogies, as you can see here in the picture, in the image. And you see agency all around. Fueling it all and encompassing it all. So, and finally, and perhaps most importantly, we see the crucial role of teachers and learners as agents of change, and the need to support and to maintain or sustain this type of research. Thank you. These are references.